Hey, I decided to do this. I've never done an IG Live before. I've decided to do this because I think a lot of people are panicking and also not just panicking, but feeling a lot of anxiety about what's happening. Currently, the world is completely different than anything we've seen before, although events like this have happened before. But I kind of want to talk just in general about dealing with anxiety. Not necessarily the coronavirus, although I'm happy to answer questions about that. I've never done an IG Live before, so I don't even know if one could ask questions. But first off, a couple of things about the coronavirus. Obviously, it's the only news that anyone is looking at today. And, all these travel bans have been put in place. All these events are canceled. And it's sad. All these jobs are being lost, or people are scared about their own jobs and their own careers. So just a couple of thoughts about the coronavirus. I think we don't actually know, for instance, many numbers. We don't know how many people have already been infected but don't have symptoms. We also don't know what the fatality rate is, because if the bulk of the people have been infected with no symptoms, then we don't have a true picture of the fatality rate. So for instance, with SARS or H1N1 in 2009, we originally thought the fatality rate was like 3 or 4%, and it turned out to be 0.01% when we found out that millions of people were already infected, but they recovered without having any symptoms. The other thing to look for in the data with coronavirus is how quickly do countries like South Korea, and now we'll see Italy, how quickly, at first we see infected cases go up like this. They double every day. But then we start to see it level off. We saw that in China. We've seen it in South Korea. Hopefully we'll see it in Italy. That's the next country that had a large amount of infections. The reason China and South Korea went like this to this is two reasons. One is social distancing and quarantining. And the other is, as more and more people get it, more and more people get immune. There's a herd immunity, and that might happen here in the U.S. So we're still in this period in the U.S., but eventually we'll be in this period. So the worst case, that's going to happen. The worst case scenario is that this goes a little too far and our healthcare system is like this. But my guess is, because of all the social distancing that's happening now, meaning people aren't going to events as much, and we're seeing this in all the data, people aren't traveling, flights are empty, the NBA is canceled, meetings are getting canceled, we'll start to see the number of infected cases start to flatten. So look for that in the data, look for that in the next 30 days or less. The other thing we're seeing with the current environment is that massive stimulus is being put into the economy. That doesn't matter so much as people are getting sick and dying, but it will matter in the long run in terms of people's jobs, careers, money situation, and so on. Let me see. If there's any questions, I'm taking a look. So all the above statistics I was mentioning about are about people with corona, but we are seeing social distancing happen. We're seeing these travel bans, so it does suggest to me that eventually we'll stop spiking and we'll see the number of new cases starting to flatten. There's also work on a cure, so keep track of that. There is a lot of fake news about cures, but I would look into, if you Google this yourself, I'm not going to recommend anything, but if you see things that were sort of herbal remedies for things like malaria or things that affected the immune system, consider getting those. But what I want to talk about really is not the coronavirus, but everybody is waking up anxious. So someone asked, how much is media driven? A lot is media driven, and a lot now is political, but this is an exponentially growing disease that is causing some fatalities. My guess is the final fatality rate won't be anywhere near 2%. It'll be somewhere between 0.1 and 0.5%. And I'm basing this not on my own research, but on what other expert immunologists have told me on my podcast. But again, let's look at the anxiety. I wake up anxious, not only for myself, but I know a lot of people who are losing jobs, they're losing income opportunities, and it scares me not just for them, but for society. If society as a whole is anxious, then decisions will be made that are irrational. When people are panicking, they don't make rational decisions. So the key now is to focus on yourself being as rational as possible so you could avoid making decisions that might harm yourself, might harm your family, might harm your job. Don't make irrational decisions now while data is still kind of being gathered. And again, what we're seeing is massive stimulus. I mean, the New York Federal Reserve just announced they're putting $1.5 trillion into the economy. That's going to drive up a lot of different markets, regardless of what happens with the virus. That's what they did in 2009, which effectively saved the economy. There's also going to be kind of it seems like there'll be some income tax relief at some point, and there's various other measures in terms of money that are going to help people. But I know, I remember I lived right next to the World Trade Center during 9/11. I thought the world was over. I thought terrorists were attacking and invading, and they were going to keep on invading. My building had asbestos all over it. There was a huge, kind of quarantine of the area. I lived right next door, and I thought the world was going to end. I was super anxious. I thought the world was going to end in 2008, 2009 with the financial crisis. The system ran out of money. I thought the ATM machines were going to close. And at the same time, I was going broke and I owned a house which was going to zero. So I was so anxious and so depressed and so nervous. I was practically suicidal. And so you start to develop techniques to, so somebody said, Italy, are people working? And the answer is no. From what I understand, they're in complete lockdown. And someone's saying within 3 years from now, coronavirus will have been only a temporary blip. I think 3 years from now, what you're going to see is every year, there'll be people who have some version of the coronavirus now. It's here to stay, just like SARS is here to stay, just like there was the Asian flu in 1957. People don't remember this. I don't remember it, but read about the Asian flu that happened in 1957, killed 34,000 people in the U.S., and still exists to this day. The economy went into a recession, but then when the recession was over, people, they stopped buying things for a little while, but then they buy more things when they come out of the recession. There's so much pent-up demand that the economy actually surges. So that's probably what will happen here. Nobody's buying now, but in a quarter or two, people will buy. But again, take a look at your anxiety or your fears and ask yourself, what is the fear about? Are you afraid you're going to run out of money? What is the worst case scenario? Are you afraid you're going to get sick? Because then you could look at the statistics and then you could stay away from people. Are you afraid family members will get sick? Are you afraid for your career or for your job? Are you afraid of going broke? Just what's the worst case scenario and really figure out what you could do about it. But also realize the worst case scenario almost never happens. Every time in my life that I've ever panicked, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to happen. This is definitely going to happen. I'm going to lose all my money. I'm going to lose all my money, and then they're going to throw me in jail for whatever reason. That's never happened. The worst case scenario has never happened. So understand what it is you're actually afraid of. Don't be angry. Don't be angry at this virus. Don't be angry at the Chinese or about politics. Look inside yourself and ask, what are you really afraid of? Are you afraid to get sick? There are things to do. Are you afraid you're going to lose all your money? There are things to do. But analyze it and be honest about what you're really afraid of. Fear is biological. When things are uncertain, it's important to realize that fear happens for biological reasons. Our ancestors, if they passed by a tree that rustled in the wind, they would run. They wouldn't step around. They wouldn't wait and see, oh my gosh, what's causing this tree to rustle? They would run automatically because they would be afraid automatically. The ancestors who stopped and said, well, why did this tree leaves rustle? They got eaten by lions. That's why they're not our ancestors. So our fear and our anxiety is a natural reaction to all this uncertainty, this scary uncertainty with the coronavirus that's happening. The likelihood is you're not going to die from it. Very few people as a percentage are going to die from this, like every other disease out there. And the likelihood is also you're going to be exposed. No matter what you do, you're going to be exposed to the disease, and you'll either not get it, or you'll have no symptoms, or you'll have few symptoms, and then you'll recover. I mean, in some populations, people over 70 are the most at risk, so those people should stay home, whatever. But anyway, label your fear. What are you afraid of? Look at the worst case scenario, analyze it. You have to there's evidence that taking good care of yourself is really important. So you have to sleep well, sleep 8 hours a day. If you don't want to get this disease, don't have I have to not do my usual junk food binges or whatever. If I don't want to get this, stay in some shape. Like if you want to run, do cardio, because that not only does that keep you healthy, but it's a natural antidepressant. So that will help relieve anxiety. And in general, this is going to sound not as intuitive, but do something creative today, because that's a way of putting yourself in flow, and it absorbs you in the thing you're creating. Write down 10 ideas, draw, write a story, just even write a diary entry, how you're feeling right now, or do something creative, because that also is a lot of evidence. It relieves anxiety when you're in this kind of flow state. And the other thing is there anybody out there you can help? So, for instance, I was looking at this website the other day called ilostmygig.com. And this lists all the people who lost their gig because South by Southwest, the conference, was canceled. And it's sad. There's all these stories. Oh, I lost $3,000 here. I was really depending on it. I lost $4,000. I was going to DJ this event. I was really depending on it. So sad, all the stories. Sign up for that site. You could donate $10 to a person, or another $10. Everybody could do a little bit of something, and that's what a community should do to help people. But when you help people too, it helps relieve your own anxiety. It makes you realize we're here as a community and not every man for himself. Like you're seeing all these runs on the store for toilet paper. It's so ridiculous. We're not going to run out of toilet paper, for God's sake. Or if that's our worst problem, then that's a pretty good problem to have. Also, every time you look at the worst case scenario, also assume there are better scenarios. For instance, again, I talked earlier about how right now the curve of infected cases is going up exponentially. It might be doubling every day. But eventually that flattens. It flattened in China, South Korea. It will flatten in Italy is my guess. And it will definitely flatten in the US in 30 days or less. And then we'll start to think more rationally. Again, another important thing is don't make decisions when everybody is so afraid. And particularly, like I know for myself, when I'm in a state of panic, I make bad decisions. So you avoid panic by analyzing the worst case scenario, by sleeping well, by getting some exercise, by eating well, by being creative, and by helping people, by helping other people. So now I'm happy to answer questions about anything from the disease to the markets to anxiety. So all these events are canceling. It is creating a huge economic hit. Some people are going to say that there's going to be a massive recession. That's unlikely to happen. Again, if you look at South by Southwest, probably $3 to $4 million will be lost from the economy this year because of South by Southwest. And that's a huge conference. But don't forget, we live in a $15 trillion a year economy. So that's a small part. All these events added up don't equal a big part of the economy yet. We might be in a recession, but even if we go in a recession, sorry, I have water. Even if we go in a recession, when nobody is buying, a quarter later, everyone's saying like, oh my gosh, I forgot to buy toilet paper for a quarter. And then they go out to the store and they buy lots of things. So typically a recession happens and then people realize, oh my gosh, I need a new car. And then everything goes up, particularly as the disease starts to fade. A great example again, take a look at history. 1957, the Asian flu was a pandemic, killed 34,000 people in the US alone, hundreds of thousands of people around the world. The economy actually fell huge in the first quarter of 1958, but then it surged just 2 quarters later. By the end of 1958, huge stock market gains. Look at the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. It seemed like money was disappearing from the entire world, and yet they did less stimulus than they're doing now. The economy surged for 10 years. 9/11, economy, it took a few months, but the economy surged. Everyone stayed home for 4 or 5 months, and then 2003, the economy went up massively. So look to past historical situations. So someone's asking what oil stocks would I buy? I'm not going to recommend anything because everybody has different levels of risk. But I think any major oil stock that's giving a good dividend now is a good buy, because don't forget, oil at $30 a barrel, that actually is like you just got a pay raise. You have to you make more money because you have to spend less on gasoline. So, and the $30 a barrel, oil fell from $50 to $30 in a few days because Saudi Arabia and Russia are having an argument, not for economic reasons, just they're arguing with each other. So Saudi Arabia said they're going to put out a lot more oil. Guess what? They don't even have the oil, so they can't do that. So oil's going to go back up, but while it's here, that's a stimulus to the economy. It's not a bad thing. Typically, the economy goes into a recession when oil is high. Like in 1973 or in 2007, oil was above 100. So now oil's at 30. It's a massive pay increase for everybody who drives to work. So, but buy any big oil company. I mean, what oil stock? Did you buy an oil stock the other day?
Yes, Chevron.
So my wife bought Chevron. Another friend of mine bought Royal Dutch Shell, which is paying an 8% dividend. It's unbelievable. Again, I don't know what you should buy and what you shouldn't, but oil is certainly a good buy. But don't be in a rush to make money on the markets. Better to wait for some certainty. You might miss the bottom, but you can't time the top or the bottom. Don't be anxious about that. Wait for a couple days in a row where the market's not going up. It's just as bad for the market to go up 4% as to go down 4%. You don't want volatility and we don't want uncertainty. Study the data, but the most important thing for your investing is not what stocks to buy, but to control your anxiety. And again, the way you do that is understand what the worst case scenario is, understand what you're actually afraid of. Like I get afraid about money, I get afraid about career, I get nervous about relationships, I get nervous about my family, and it's natural. I've probably been anxious about all of those things today, but you look at the worst case scenario, you look at how you can handle that. You figure out what it is you're actually afraid of, like feel it in your body where you're actually afraid. Talk to your friends. Avoid people who are toxic because that's the worst thing to be around when you're anxious. Be around people who you love and who are good to you. And either be creative, which puts you in this flow state where you feel much better, or help someone else. And I mentioned one site, ilostmygig.com, is a way to help with even $10, $20 people who have lost their gigs because of coronavirus. There's probably many ways you can help people out there. Go on Patreon and support your favorite podcast or whatever. Any other? Okay, so ask a question now. I'll look at the feed now, and so I won't miss any questions. I'm just going to wait for questions. Thank you so much for appreciating this. And I plan on doing regular Instagram lives. So the question is, are you canceling comedy? Yeah, I was supposed to go to Winnipeg and do 6 shows in a couple weeks. I am totally going to cancel that because there's no reason to travel right now. And I want to be here for my family. I want to be here for my own responsibilities. I don't want to get quarantined outside of the country. I just came back actually from the Netherlands where I was doing 5 shows around the country, and I'm glad I got back when I did. So I've done a bunch of podcasts on coronavirus. I've done 3 podcasts about it where I've talked with experts, and I also talked about the economy. Would I take a week-long trip to Canada? I just canceled a week-long trip to Canada, so the answer is no, I would not do that. What do I think will happen in real estate? Again, the Federal Reserve just announced a few minutes ago they're putting $1.5 trillion into the economy, and that's just the beginning. That's more than they put money. That's more money than they put in during the 2008-2009 financial crisis. So I do think real estate is going to survive. Although I probably wouldn't make any major decisions right now. I don't make any financial decisions that are big ones right now. Advice for Canadian stocks. Who knows? But again, Canada is a very natural resource-focused company. Natural resources go up when the economy is strong and they go down when there's a recession. So there might be a small dip, and of course, oil has gone down. But in general, that creates opportunity. So look for opportunities rather than panic sell. I have an opportunity to go to Esther Hicks' conference. Don't go to that. Don't go to any conferences right now that you don't have to go to. Social distancing is really important because you don't know if you have the disease. You don't know if the 1,000 people at the conference have the disease. It's really important to figure out what you need to do versus what you want to do. Do the things you need to do. Don't just do the things you want to do. What do you do personally to manage your anxiety when it hits you? Well, I'll tell you, because I've been managing my anxiety through this. Everybody in the world right now is anxious. So what I do again is, and I'll say this again, is I figure out what it is I'm afraid of. Am I afraid I'm going to get the disease? I'm not really afraid of that. Am I afraid of losing money because of the disease? Yes. Am I afraid about my career because of the disease? Yeah, a little bit, even though that's irrational. Why should it affect any of the things I'm doing? I don't really know, but I get irrationally afraid. And it's very important to not be around toxic people. Don't be around people who are gossiping or people who you feel bad around or people not good for you. You want to be your natural self, be with people who love you and who you love. And to manage my anxiety also, I do things that are creative. So I just did a podcast. I'll do some writing today. I'll work on there's a game that I've been planning on doing. I'll work on that. And then also it's important to help others. And there are many ways to help other people. Figure out a way that's unique to you. You'll feel good when you help others. That is the miracle cure for anxiety. So I'll answer some more questions. So someone says, don't forget the other diseases. That's a really good point. Obviously, everyone compares the flu's numbers with coronavirus. The problem with coronavirus is that the number of cases are doubling every day or every couple of days as opposed to the flu. So the fear is we don't know where that will stop. But the reality is, look at the data coming out of China. And if you don't believe that data, look at the data coming out of South Korea. South Korea has done excellent testing. And what happened was the diseases went up, but then it started to go down after about a month or two of social distancing, of these travel bans and so on. The same exact thing, even better, will happen in the US. I have had my morning coffee. Now I'm having some tea. Someone says, avoid crowds, stay home, read books. I believe that that's true if you can avoid it. Again, stick to the things you need to do, cancel the things you want to do but you don't need to do. Focus on what you can do to improve yourself at your home without other people around. If these other countries handled and recovered from it quickly, we will recover. That's true. We will recover faster. We will recover faster than China. That's for sure. When will the coronavirus go away? Nobody knows. Again, we're more afraid about uncertainty now. We're more afraid and anxious about the things we don't know. And we don't know when it's going to go away. But we see the evidence. If you look at every other pandemic in history, if you look even at South Korea right now, cases spiked, and then after a month or two, they started to decline. We have more knowledge now, even in the past few weeks, even in the past few days. I expect that things will decline here within the next 30 days, maybe even less. This is going to go away. The economy is going to spike up. There's almost too much stimulus in the economy right now. Yes, it's sad. People are going to die. More people are going to die. But at some point, the rate of acceleration will start to go down, and it will happen sooner than people realize. Someone's asking, is dollar cost averaging into stocks during this a good idea? I don't know. I wouldn't make any big financial decisions right now either way, but I'm not recommending anything either way. All I'm saying is try not to panic. Don't panic sell. Don't panic buy. Try to be as rational as possible by using the techniques I outlined earlier. Do I think that globalization is responsible for the spread of this disease? Absolutely. 20 years ago, or the first time SARS appeared, China wasn't as big a part of the global economy as it is now. Now, I was surprised how many industries depend 100% on China. It's insane. So yes, globalization did increase that, but that's not going away. This is a new normal. Just like 9/11 was a new normal, just like the financial crisis was a new normal. It doesn't mean it's a bad new normal. It just means we have to adjust. We're going to have vaccines. We're going to have cures. We're going to have, the economy is going to be better for it because we'll start using other countries, maybe even America, to do our manufacturing. We won't be so dependent on China. China lost the trade war because of this, so that's an upside once this all settles down. And, we'll see. Next question. Am I worried about buying products from abroad? No. The coronavirus does last on surfaces, but we don't know how long. That's one of the things we don't know. But by the time it gets to you, most products probably, I don't know for sure, so I can't say for sure, but close to 100%, if not 100% of products are safe by the time they reach you. I haven't seen Tim Ferriss's latest post, but thank you for recommending it. I will check it out. I agree, a vaccine is still far away, but it's probably not more than a year away. I think what will happen is, similar to the Asian flu of 1957, is that by the summer, we'll see it die down, and then maybe we see a little pickup in the fall. Hopefully, we'll have a vaccine by then, or at least some form of cure or symptom relief or something. Okay, so some people are saying 2 days, it's less in service. I've seen up to 9 days. Again, don't rely on data that we're just reading in the newspaper. Like, we need to understand data that's come out of solid research. I've seen many research papers that were later debunked just in the past few weeks. So we're still in a period of learning. So let's see. Any other questions not about stocks? I'm happy to talk about the economy, but so someone's asking, why are ETFs a hot topic? ETFs are stocks that represent the entire market. So you don't have to take a risk on any one company. You can make a bet that the economy and the market will survive by betting on an ETF. So James, someone asked, James, what data should we believe in then? What sites do you recommend? I don't know if there's any one site that I would recommend. There is a map of the coronavirus out there that's pretty useful, but I would keep an eye on the data coming out of South Korea. South Korea is busy testing their entire population, so they will have a better understanding of the fatality rate, the real fatality rate. It's not 2%, it's much lower. South Korea will get a sense of the real fatality rate. Also, from South Korea, we'll understand how fast it will take to start deaccelerating the number of new cases. It's not as long as you think. So that's why these conditions are put in place for only 30 days. It might even be less. So we'll see. What is a blockchain? It's boring. Am I getting on trains and planes? So the answer is, get on a train if you need to for work or whatever, but try to avoid it if you can. Try to maybe drive or carpool. I was on a plane. I spent a week doing comedy all around the Netherlands. I was in 5 different cities in the Netherlands. I just came back a couple of days ago. I'm glad I came back. I'm supposed to go to Houston in a few weeks. I'm supposed to go to Winnipeg after that to do stand-up comedy. I've canceled those, and that's it. I'm not going to get on a plane anytime soon. Is this a catalyst to an upcoming recession? Probably, or at the very least, 0% growth. A recession is defined by 2 down quarters in a row. I don't think we're going to have 2 down quarters. I think what's going to happen is everybody's afraid right now. Everyone's sitting in their home and not buying anything right now. But when they stop that, what happens is you have to catch up. You have to buy all the things you stop buying. So the economy will surge at some point once these fears go down. Whether that's in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know. It's certainly not going to be forever. I don't think we'll actually see an official recession, although the economy will slow a little bit. But then the economy will spike up probably by summer or early fall. I have not seen the Tim Ferriss post, but again, I will take a look at it, and it's good. If Tim described the worst case scenario, I respect that. I think we should all look at the worst case scenario. Chances are, though, the worst case scenario will not happen. Every time I've ever panicked in my whole life, and I've panicked quite a bit. I'm a very anxious person. Every time I've panicked in my entire life, the worst case scenario never, ever, not even once happened. So the key is keep an eye on the accurate data, not the newspapers trying to scare you. Keep an eye on the data coming out of South Korea, whatever other data is coming out by solid research. I will post data on my podcast, on my Instagram account, and so on. I will keep track of the data and we'll do these updates. But also, most importantly, keep track of your own anxiety. The question is, am I buying stocks here today? My wife actually bought some stocks. I myself do not make any financial decisions during a time of panic because I don't know for sure how much. Don't forget, we're not rational animals. We're irrational for the most part. So if there's a chance I'm going to make an irrational decision, I'll make no decision. Again, much bigger investment for me is to invest in curing any temporary spikes in anxiety. So again, sleep well, eat well, do a little bit of exercise, analyze the worst case scenario and how you will survive it. Analyze what it is you're actually afraid of. Are you afraid of money? Are you afraid of getting sick? Are you afraid of your relationships? Are you afraid for your family? Analyze what you're really scared of and understand it. do something creative that cures anxiety, and or help someone out. And I listed a site, one site among many, ilostmygig.com, is about people listing gigs that they've lost because of events canceled, and you could put $10 to someone, $20 to someone, or there's many ways to help people. So guarantee that will reduce anxiety. Focus on investing on how to reduce your anxiety. That's how you will make the most money in life. Watching a funny movie, that's a great idea. I just watched the TV series Extras, which is Ricky Gervais. It's on Netflix. Great idea. Thank you. Stop asking me about stocks. What advice would I give to someone about doing comedy? Look at every headline and look at every situation in your life and think about an interesting twist about what could be funny about this. So for instance, obviously coronavirus is in the news. A friend of mine was working on a joke. I don't want to give too much of his joke away, but he was working on a joke which has an interest. You always take two topics and combine them and see what it looks like. So he said, I'm not going to get coronavirus this time. I'm going to wait for coronavirus 2.0 because I want to make sure the camera and the Wi-Fi works. So he's working on that joke still. Don't criticize it, but take a look at any situation and try to look at the other side of it. The other thing about doing stand-up comedy is you have to get on stage as much as possible, because being funny on stage is a lot different than being funny in front of your friends. So, what arcade game is that? So there's an arcade game in the background. It's a multiple arcade game. There's a lot of games on it, but the game I play is Defender. That is my favorite arcade game. Would I braid my hair for a month to eliminate coronavirus? Probably not. Favorite household cleaner jokes? Unfortunately, I lived for so long in Airbnbs, and only recently have I been living in an actual apartment. I don't even know what household cleaners we have. What do we have? Ajax or something?
We have bleach.
Bleach? I don't even know what a household cleaner is. Oh, you're disappointed I didn't suit up for this. Okay, next time I'm going to wear my hazmat suit. If you look at a video on Instagram I just posted, I did, my wife and I wore a hazmat suit. Ajax, is that a household cleaner or is it a clothes cleaner? Ajax.
It's Ajax. Is a tub cleaner.
Okay. What book am I currently reading? I'm rereading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So that's another way to reduce anxiety. So Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp. His family was dead. He was in the worst situation you could possibly be in. But he told himself each day, he asked himself, what is the meaning in my life? What reasons do I have to live? And that gave him the fortitude to survive a panicky time. So that's why it's good to reread books like that. Am I buying extra food? To be honest, yeah, I'm buying extra food. I just did today. I just had this conversation with my wife, Robin, today to buy some food. Not because I'm scared of a Mad Max kind of situation, but so many people are buying food in our neighborhood and the stores are being emptied out. I just, I don't want the worst case scenario to happen to me. So I'll probably have maybe 20 to 30 days worth of food in the house, which is not that much. So, but in any case, advice for a miner who has never invested before: read about, don't invest yet or invest on paper sites or whatever, but read about the great investors. Read about Warren Buffett, read about the history of investing. It's very interesting to me that everybody's panicking right now, but we've been through Asian flu in 1957, Hong Kong flu in 1968. We've been through SARS, MERS, some avian flu, swine flu. Swine flu actually ended up killing a lot of people, but it did not cause the U.S. to go into a recession. So look at historical events. Look what happened after 9/11. What happened after the financial crisis? What happened after Black Monday in 1987? And then compare with now, where the Federal Reserve has put so much money into the system, more than they've ever put in before. So look at history. History, of course, doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Similar things should happen now. Should the U.S. be doing more to stop this crisis? Well, there's a travel ban. Their events are being canceled. People are working on cures. People are working on vaccines. I think the U.S. is doing what they can. Of course, the situation is going to get worse, but keep in mind that in other countries, South Korea and China in particular, after the exponential spike, it flattened out the number of cases. Expect the same thing to happen here. Even if it gets worse before it gets better, it will get better. This will end. This is not going to last more than a few months, just like South Korea, just like China. Don't forget, in China, they shut down all the factories. Now the factories are open. It's just a few months later. So the U.S., we have more information now. The U.S. has a better healthcare system. We're better able to handle this. So yes, there's going to be a worse time, but there's also going to be a time when we know more data and cases will start to go down every day. So trust that that will happen. Again, focus on investing in your own anxiety and stress and panic. And so I'll just repeat it one more time. Understand what is the worst case scenario for you personally and how will you deal with it. Understand what you're really afraid about. Are you afraid about money? Are you afraid about your career? Are you afraid about your relationship? Are you afraid you're going to get sick? Are you afraid your family's going to get sick? Understand what you're really afraid about rather than just panicking about everything. And then do things that help yourself and help anxiety. These are known to help anxiety. So eat well, sleep 8 hours a day, not only for anxiety, but to help your immune system avoid the disease. Have people around you and talk to people that are good for you, that you love, as opposed to toxic people that are bad for you. And then be creative. That's a natural cure for anxiety. Do something creative. If you're not going to work, do something creative all day. Don't just reload your stocks or look at the news. Don't watch the news at all. The news is like a bunch of idiots. And finally, see if there's anybody you can help. We don't have to rely on the government to help every part of our lives. There's things I've done to help people in the past few days. Maybe it's helping someone who lost a gig in one of these events that were canceled. Maybe it's by providing information. Maybe it's by helping people be less panicky. Maybe it's by spending time with people who are a little elderly or who are alone or who are scared. So do something to help people. Do I have life insurance? No, I don't have any insurance actually. So in any case, good luck. I am going to, let me see what my schedule is tomorrow. I think I'll do this again tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, I'll do it over the weekend. Let me see on my schedule. So yeah, I was supposed to be at South by Southwest tomorrow. So guess what? I'm free at the exact same time tomorrow. So at 2 o'clock or 2:30 tomorrow, I will come back and do another IG Live and answer any questions. So, okay, here's a good question. Trump will win or lose because of this virus? I think if the virus continues for, let's call it, I think if the exponential part of the virus continues for another 2.5 months, I think there's a good chance the entire economy will shift upside down and people tend to vote the economy. And I think if the virus starts to die down because of all of this social distancing and travel bans and so on, which I expect it to, I think, it depends on who the Democratic nominee is, which is probably Joe Biden. And it depends on if Joe Biden, makes any serious gaffes in the debates and stuff like that. So tomorrow I'll talk a little about investments. I'll talk about any new data. I'll do it at 2 p.m. tomorrow or 2:30. And I'll look up the Jayhawks. I have no idea who they are. But thanks for tuning into this. Again, this is the first IG Live I ever did, so I don't know if it sticks around. But thanks for doing this. And you can also tweet any questions to me or ask me any questions on any of my recent Instagram posts. Thanks so much. And good luck today. Remember, focus on anxiety. Figure out what the worst case scenario is. Figure out what you're actually afraid of, as opposed to just general panic. Are you afraid of money? Are you afraid of getting sick? Are you afraid of your family? Whatever. Sleep well, eat well, be around good people, be creative, and most importantly, or equally important, try to help someone else today. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks a lot for tuning into this.